Okay, well, good evening, everybody, and thank you so much for joining us tonight, and Happy New Year. Um, can you imagine yourself being put in prison for 27 years for a murder that you did not commit? It's 27 years is a lot of years away from family, friends, society, doing things in the free world. Well, tonight we are talking with Charles Jones, who knows what it's like to be locked away in a Kansas prison for several decades as an innocent man. And he could have turned into an angry man. He could have been, somebody who doesn't trust other human beings, but he didn't. So Charles used prison as a classroom to earn his GED and to take classes to learn about the law. And as I've learned, he used prison as a sanctuary, a proving ground, an environment for learning the value of self-examination, leading to a cleaner heart with a burning desire to help other people. So, also tonight, we've invited Bonnie Bartolos to be with us as well. And Bonnie was the Christian Science volunteer chaplain who ministered to Charles on the inside. So, thank you both very much for being here tonight.
Thank you for inviting us.
Right. You're looking good. So, Charles, I'm going to start with you. Let's just take us back here. Can you tell us a little bit about your early life growing up and what was that like?
The early life, growing up, my mother, she was very humbled and she made sure that I had the state of mind to respect women, be humble, relax, be calm under pressure. And she wanted me to not be involved, in the street activity. Just take it easy, understand, learn, but unfortunately, just being in the low income housing, it's just infested and it's just surrounded with gang activity, drug activity.
Yeah.
And so just growing up, I just grew up in that type of neighborhood to where, it was in your face.
Yeah. Yeah. So can you explain a little bit how you got entangled with the law? I mean, just from what you explained, it's kind of evident how that can happen, but
Yeah.
what age were you when that happened? And how did that end up getting you into prison?
Well, at the age of 13ish, I started to see my environment as an opportunity to try to gain finances and try to better myself in a way to where become a man and become someone that provide for the females in my family.
Mm,
So I seen easy ways to get on the corner and do certain things, sell rocks. And so I just picked up the bag. And when I picked up the bag, just started selling crack rocks. And so the
mm,
the police was like embedded within that same criminal activity. And so that just, when you're breaking the law, you're automatically going to invite the police.
yeah.
And that's how I got entangled with the law. It's
So
selling
you
drugs.
were pretty young. I mean, that's a pretty young
Selling
age.
drugs. 13 years old, selling drugs.
Yeah. So, but what were the circumstances that were like around you being wrongfully incarcerated? You went to court. Evidence was presented. That how did that crime come down on you?
Well, more than likely, it's just the police department, they was really involved in the criminal activity far as a particular detective. And so he was just embedded into it. And so I was just on the corner. That's the only way that I was able to be involved in. I was just on that corner. I was a young drug dealer.
Yeah.
And so since I was a young drug dealer, a minor, officers just felt like what better way to victimize a minor that don't know how to defend himself.
Mm.
And so they chose to attack minors. And I was just one of the minors that was in that environment, and I had the perfect opportunity to be attacked.
Mm,
And that's what led to my incarceration, and that's what led to the circumstances of the wrongful incarceration.
mhm.
Uh, uh, David, uh, Charles, didn't he impersonate an FBI agent when he arrested you?
Particularly, those circumstances is independently and it's situations that happen on its own and have its own unique circumstances that certain people was doing out there. You had a lot of people that was in the business of robbing other drug dealers or in the business of attacking other people. So they used the strategy to where if we just pretend to be a police, they're going to put their hands up. And it's going to be easier for us to capture them. And so they knew the techniques to use because they was embedded within that circle of law enforcement. And so it was just a particular, individuals that utilize the police badge to go around and just attack young drug dealers, such as me.
Mm, mm,
And so that particular situation, it was happening all over to a lot of young juveniles within the black community. And they seen that we was making fast money. And so they
mm,
was like, this is an easy way to get 5 or 6 thousand from this little 15-year-old. All we
mm.
have to do is dress up like a police officer and say, freeze, put your hands up.
So when you say dress up like a police officer, you mean this was somebody who was not a police officer, I think as Bonnie is indicating.
Yeah, yeah. Some of them, wasn't, police officers. And then you had some of them like the corrupt cops that was assisting them in the matter.
Got it. Wow.
And so that's how I was able, and I was just attacked by one of those individuals
Mhm.
and under the color of the law, but
But
that's
they
how
had to come up with evidence. I mean, you can't just get thrown into prison for without a trial, without evidence. What
everything
happened?
that, and everything that was presented, it was just fabrication and it was just falsified and it was just twisted in a way to make a young juvenile seem like he was a drug dealer, bigger than life, taking control over things. And it was just a mastermind within the circle of the police department that they knew they craft and
Mm,
they knew how to do it.
mm,
And so that's how they work. And so they
mm,
twist everything and they falsify everything.
mm. Uh, that's not a good story, for sure. It's that sounds extremely sad to me, but knowing that you were innocent, how did you manage to navigate prison culture? How did you just, what was it like to go into a prison?
It was extremely difficult because at times I was the youngest one inside there. And I just had a different type of a swag. I had a different type of personality.
Mhm.
And it was picked up on real quick by the prison population, the prison culture.
So explain that. What do you mean you were, what was different about you?
I was pretty much, chill and pretty much shocked in a juvenile mind, like, why am I here? And I had more of a humble type mentality. person that liked to educate myself. I got an associate degree in business management, and then I moved to my master. So I was always going to the library. I was always trying to think of ways to kind of like better my environment in a non-violent manner.
Mm.
And everyone in prison, they just had a different type of
Yeah.
state of mind where it was pump it up, it was aggressive, it was talk the loudest, and I was talking the softest.
Yeah. Wow. But you had to figure out a strategy to be yourself and let the prison culture thing just go. That
Yeah,
has to be hard because most people that try to fight prison culture can get hurt.
they can get hurt, yes. And so one strategy that I picked up on early on within my 21, between 21 and 22, I understood that in the prison culture, it was going to be violence. And you're going to, people are going to challenge you.
Hmm.
And you have to be able to stand up for yourself. And one thing that helped me, I grew up in a neighborhood to where they was well respected within the prison culture. And so they understood that I was from this neighborhood.
Mhm.
And so only thing that I had to do was pretty much stand my grounds. Like,
Yeah.
don't mess with me and I won't mess with you.
Yeah.
But then at 21, I understood that if I learn the law and I educate myself, I can pretty much tell the physical, violent prison culture that, look, I'm better off in the library.
Mhm.
I'm better off learning this law because when everybody get in trouble and they go to a DR and they need to fight their case, you're going to need my knowledge to help you win.
Mhm.
And so once I figured out that strategy, I would tell guys, look, I can't be on the front line, bro. You can't have me being physical with people because I have to be the one that
Mhm.
talk to the warden to get you out of segregation.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so once they understood that, I was like, you're making sense. And I said, so just let me be in the library. And they like, leave him alone. Let him stay on that law.
I
Let him
love that
stay
you
in them
stood your
books.
ground. I love that.
Yes. And I
People
encourage,
respected that, didn't they?
yeah, and I encourage other guys that's in prison, like you don't always have to adopt the prison physical mentality. You can
Okay.
educate yourself and learn how to problem solve and think your way through
Yeah.
instead of trying to act your way through.
Yeah. Tell me about somebody that you helped that turned away from the prison culture because of your example.
I had I got individuals, that really follow my lead and
Mhm.
seek guidance from me because they understand my struggle and they understand that I was innocent. And he will always look at me and he like, man, how's you dealing with this? I can understand. I pled guilty to this. Like, I know you don't supposed to be here,
How did they
man,
know that? How did they know that? Because
because
everybody's innocent.
they knew the culture, because they understood the culture that we grew up in.
Okay.
Corrupt cops. They understood that, look, this one right here, I know for sure that he's innocent because I understand the culture that we are from, the neighborhood. They
Yeah.
understood the detectives. They understood that.
Yeah.
And so he just asks me all the time, I just don't know how you smile, how you go to school, how you do all of these different things. And I just tell him, man, I said, it's just in my DNA. I just
Mhm.
look at Jesus Christ and I just say he went through the same thing. The government was on his shoulders. And so I just told him, I'm like, the government is on my shoulders
Mm.
and they don't want to come up off it. And I just kept my motivation and just kept striving because I understood that it was in my DNA to be strong.
Yeah. And that's what helped other guys.
And that's what helped other guys. That inspired them because they seen me going to the law library with them books
Yeah.
and learning and just, not giving up.
Yeah. Wow. That's that's an amazing thing right there. Um, Tell us how your case was able to just get reviewed, so that there's a possibility that you could be free at some point. How did that happen?
See, when I came in at a juvenile, this one man told me his name is Jerome Cheeks, and he was like, "I know law." And another guy was named Pluckett, and he was like, "Look, I'm gonna tell you one thing, youngster. You stay in that law library. You keep your case active in court because if you let your case become inactive in court,
Mm,
it's over with. You're
mm,
going to stay there for life. The federal court don't care. You missed the 1 year deadline. You are done."
wow.
And so I just was able to keep my case. I was the only one that was able to keep my case alive and make it to federal court to get a federal review.
How did you do that?
I just, just kept my case, active and filed 2254s, which is a writ of habeas corpus, and just made sure that I studied the law and just exercised my due diligence.
But when you say kept your case alive, what did you have an attorney? Somebody was helping you, or you just you?
I was doing this pro se. Everything that I did, it was pro se, me winning. So every time I would get denied a decision, I had a certain amount of time to file an appeal. And
Mm,
so I knew I had 90 days to file this writ of certiorari. So I had to file that on time to
yeah,
keep it active, to keep it moving. And then
yeah,
I had a certain amount of time. So I would always file something in court. Even though they would deny me, I would have a different strategy and file something else.
yeah,
And I was like, I know they probably gonna deny me, but I'm gonna file something else.
yeah.
And I just and I just kept the strategy going, and I would come up with different strategies on how to get the court attention. Like for example, they have a thing where you can file at any time if you actually innocent. And
Yeah,
so you can file at any time if you actually innocent of being a career criminal.
yeah,
And so I just educated my mind and I said, I'm actually innocent of being an adult. I was a juvenile at the time.
wow.
So I invited the court to review that issue. Can you
Wow.
review the fact that I'm actually innocent of being an adult?
Wow.
And in those, and it just worked. And then once it kept alive, shout out to Rock Nation. They just started donating millions of dollars to fund the investigation on the corruption in the Kansas City, Kansas Police Department. And once that started happening, the federal government got involved. And you don't want to mess with the federal government once they get involved.
Mm,
And so they just started indicting the officers and everyone that was involved. And once that happened, they started looking at all the other cases and they just said, oh, Charles was right all this time.
wow.
And
That's amazing.
I was just
How
right
did
there
how
waiting.
did they find a guy? And I'm absolutely fascinated. How did you, it was it the federal government that just kept digging, 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 and they go,
Yes.
things don't add?
Yes. See, I petitioned the federal government and I wrote President Obama. And I told him, I said, look,
Wow.
I don't know what's going on, but this place is corrupt.
Hmm.
You got the power. I ain't asking you to get me out or do nothing. I'm
Hmm.
just asking you to make a call.
Hmm.
Or and I wrote the courts, and the federal court was like, we're going to reverse your case and send it back to the district court.
Huh.
And we're going to look into this.
Hmm.
And I got the magistrate, his name was David. I had a phone conference with him.
Hmm.
He said, I'm going to give you an attorney. I said, nah, I don't
Hmm.
want no attorney. They can't be trusted. They part of the system. He said, nah.
Wow.
He said, nah, Charles, trust me on this. I'm going to give you an attorney that's going to work this.
Hmm.
And I said, man, I've been doing this by myself, proactive. I made it to the United States Supreme Court, to the 10th Circuit. I won. He like, man, trust me. I was like, all right, Judge, give me an attorney. And when Melanie Bratton came up and she was like, look, I know you had bad experiences with the court system and attorneys, but I believe you.
Hmm.
I know them characters down there within that Wyandotte County.
Hmm.
And so we're going to fight,
Hmm.
but you got to trust me. And when she said that, I ain't never had no attorney tell me that.
Hmm.
So I was like, take over. And when
Hmm.
she took over, everything just started unfolding
Stuff
about the
happened.
corruption in Wyandotte County and
Wow.
detectives and
Hmm. But they obviously found the person that did commit the crime. That was the proof that you were not that criminal. You weren't the guy. So somebody found him. Something happened.
yeah, the detective, they pretty much, once they understood that the detective was the one that handled everything and he was just a corrupt character,
Mhm.
everything else is just up for jeopardy. Everything else is just, it's questionable.
Yeah, yeah.
And so it's it's unfolding and it's all because, because I believe in the system. I'm not this type of person that says, you know, screw the system or F the system or things like that. I say F the corrupt system, but I believe in the United States justice system. That's why I kept filing
Yeah.
cases in court because I believed in the system. And I
Mhm.
just wanted the system to believe in me
Mhm.
and understand that look, you have to look a little bit more deeper into this. The devil is in the detail. And once they started paying attention to the detail, they seen who the devil was. And they was like, it's not that juvenile.
Yeah. So after they found out who really was the killer in this case. How soon was it that you could get out?
Well, my situation, once I was able to be released, on the 24th of March
Mhm.
of 25, it was a wonderful experience, and it just helped me understand that all the fight that I did and everything, it was all worth it,
Mhm.
because now I just feel totally vindicated that they see what I see now.
Yeah.
And that's
I
it's
got to ask, this is such an amazing story, but we haven't touched on how is it that you learned about Christian Science in prison? How did that happen?
I learned about Christian Science through a visitation visit with my sister, and I picked up the key to the scripture.
Mm.
And when it said father, mother, I always understood, because the women in my family are strong. And I give a lot of credit to them. And
Mm.
they the ones that helped me create this state of mind and have this character that you have to you have to you have to respect women, and you have to respect the power of a woman.
Mhm.
And you just can't use your manpower to overthrow the power of a woman. And I just started researching, like, why does it always say male? Why doesn't it say female? Because the females that I grew up around, they have power.
Mhm.
And so once I seen that, I was like, oh yeah, Christian Science, Mary Baker Eddy, the all in all, one mind, one thought. Oh, I'm in.
That spoke to you.
Yeah, that spoke to me.
Mm. I got to ask Bonnie, how did you meet Charles? How did you two get locked up here? How did that happen?
Well, Jeff Harbin at our church was headed up the institutional committee, and he was pretty much doing it by himself. And although there was a couple of other people, and for 3 years he asked me if I would go to the prisons, and it's like, I don't think so. And and so I went to the detention center, which is where they're held in Olathe, waiting being sentenced. And it was okay, but when he said, "How about going to Lansing?" And I said, "I'll try it. I'll go." And after one time of being there, I knew that's where I belonged. And I really liked working with the men because they were trying to figure out things. They thought differently. The women were full of tears, but um, and Charles stood out from all the other inmates. And
How
I think,
so?
Charles, did you ask for the Christian Science chaplain to come to the prison?
Yes.
I think you were responsible for us
Yeah,
coming there,
I was responsible for establishing the Christian Science within the Lansing prison,
right?
because they had the Pentecostal, the Baptist. So I said, look, he was like, well, Charles, Mr. Jones, you don't have a volunteer, you don't have no chaplain, you don't have anything. So you need to just go to the regular Christian call out. I said, nah, I want the all in all. And he was like, well, you're going to have to get some people, some other inmates. You're going to have two or more. You're going to have to get a volunteer. You're going to have to do this. You're going to have to file this paperwork. I said, I got it. Well, just give me the paperwork, give me the protocol, give it to
Mm.
me. I go back to my room, and I had something on your desk Monday. He's like, all right. And so I went around and I started talking to other guys. I said, do you know anybody in the community that is willing? He was like, well, I know, I know Gabe. You could talk to Gabe. And I talked to Gabe and I said, Gabe, I need a volunteer. He was
Hmm.
like, I'll see what I can do.
Hmm.
And so when I was there, Charles was completely different than any of the other inmates that were attending. Um, he speaks well. He was soft-spoken. He was humble and wasn't confused. He didn't have chaotic thought. He was very clear in his thought. And I thought, this is somebody that's very unique. So, and Charles would frequently stay afterwards and we would talk and he would ask me questions about things. But I just knew that he was on a track that was different than anybody else. And he always had purpose.
Hmm.
And I had great respect for that.
Hmm. Let me ask you this. As inmates get closer to release, that can bring up a whole lot of issues. Am I actually going to really be able to make it? I mean, freedom sounds interesting and great to most of us, but to a lot of people that are coming out, freedom isn't necessarily a good thing because it's like I've been locked away so long. I don't think I know how to deal with freedom. I don't know how to make choices. I don't, there's a whole lot of issues that come up with people about to be released. How did Charles deal with his upcoming release?
See, my upcoming release, I knew I had to have a strategy.
Yeah.
So I understood that I was going into a world that, the pressure was gonna be there and I had to be clear-headed and I had to think my thoughts all the way through. So I had a time frame. I said, well, for the first 90 days, I'm gonna go into the world and I'm gonna just look around.
Hmm.
I'm not gonna take no drinks. I'm not gonna go to no bars. I'm not gonna go to no club. I'm not gonna have no fun. I'm not gonna do any of that. I'm gonna just examine for the first 90 days. I'm gonna just look around. And I just looked around. And then
Hmm.
I said to myself, like, I know that I'm gonna have an urge to want to do things that I never ever done before. Associate. So I gave myself a 6 month grace period that look, I gotta see what the club is like. I gotta see what the women over here is about. I gotta see what this is about. I gotta examine that. But I knew that I couldn't stay into that state of mind for too long. No longer than 6 months, 6 or 7 months. Because
Hmm.
if you stay even longer than that, then it start becoming a habit and then you start becoming addicted to it. And
Yeah.
so now it's something that you can't even break. And so I understood that. And so I said I had to have a strategy. So what am I going to do after I go through that phase? I
Hmm.
said after I go through that 6 month phase of seeing this girl, seeing this club, understanding this, channeling and seeing how they react to me, I got to switch over to family mode.
Yep.
So I got to have a girl. And then once I have a family mode, all that club stuff is out the window because kids is going to be involved.
Hmm.
And when kids is involved, you have to be clear headed.
Hmm.
You can't have things inside your mind that's clouding your mind because children can pick up on that.
Right.
Absolutely.
And they understand, like, look, so when children is involved, all of that got to stop. And so you switch over to family mode. And that's the mode that you want to just build your professional life in and take your career to the next level is being in family mode because you got your breakfast, you got your dinner, everything is situated, everything is lined up. You got your woman in the house, You're going to work, you got your day-to-day schedule. So you building a healthy mind and a healthy culture.
Mhm.
And that's how you able to thrive, and that's how you able to exercise and just take your legacy and take your career and brand to the next level.
Mhm.
Good for you.
Bonnie, were you with Charles the day that he came out?
Yes, I met Charles when the
Okay,
day.
what was he like really?
Oh, well, first of all, he told me where he was at the halfway house, and there was sort of a white wall, and he said a small entrance, and the GPS, we went past it. I went past it. So I went to the parking lot just beyond it, and I was turning around, and Charles, all he owned was a backpack with his clothing. But
Mhm.
here I saw him come running around into the parking lot, and I I got out of the car, and we ran to each other and just grabbed each other and gave each other a big hug. That was his moment of coming out, that freedom of just expressing our gratitude. And
Yes.
so then I drove back from Wichita to
Kansas
Kansas City.
City.
And
Yes.
that was a 2 hour drive. And that was when we had a chance to really talk, which we'd never been able to before.
Mhm.
And I'm just going to insert something, even though you didn't ask, David. This was on the Monday, I believe, wasn't it, Charles?
Yes.
Before you had your annual meeting in Washington, D.C.
Yeah,
And you all said to bring Charles.
yeah,
So
we did.
I paid his airfare, I paid his hotel room, and it was 2 days, and he absolutely blossomed with that freedom. On the airplane, he had never been on an airplane ride before. In fact, we hardly made it to the airport in time. They had shut the door, and and then they opened it for us to go onto the airplane. And but Charles, I think, was so happy to be in Washington, D.C. And he loves our government, and he loved the White House. He was going to go for a walk, and I said, okay, that's fine. I thought, I hope he knows how to get back from where he was going. Um,
Yes.
and 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 he comes back and he shows me a picture of a photograph of himself in front of the White House. And we went up to the top of the Washington Monument and looked over the
Yeah.
whole city. And
Um,
it was and the people at the Embrace Fully was significant, I think, for Charles. We never talked about it, but I know it was meeting people with somewhat similar backgrounds
yeah.
and how
Yeah.
they had changed their lives. And
And it was the two young ladies,
the two young attorneys,
and
Oh yeah,
they
yeah, yeah, yeah.
yes, I spent a lot of time with them and
you spent most of your time with
the
them.
lady and so they really opened my eyes to a lot of
Yeah.
things and they just let me know, that like, this is life, this is how it is. And just being in Washington, D.C. was really a great experience because that's the federal government, and I got a lot of respect, for the federal government. Shout out to them because they kept my case alive and they told me the truth.
Yeah.
And so the state of Kansas, in the Wyandotte County, I was iffy on them, but shout out to the federal government. You know, I, I appreciate their hard work.
Yeah.
We're so glad you're out. I got one more question, and then we're going to open it up to our audience here. Charles, when you went to a Christian Science church for the first time, what was that like?
It was it was great to see how they articulated the Christian Science, the Mary Baker Eddy teachings, and
Hmm.
the first reader and the second reader,
Hmm.
and how Mary Baker Eddy, like words like captured my attention, and her words like really resonate with me and speak to me in a way. And I'm like, this was in the 1800s. A woman was speaking like this. Like, this is powerful. A woman was speaking like this in the 1800s. And so that just gave me energy like, I am on the right track. You better respect the power in these women. So,
Well, we got a lot of them here tonight. Probably have questions for you. Let's turn it over. Gabriel, are you there?
I am here. And
All right.
first of all, thank you, Charles, for sharing everything that you've shared. Um, a couple of clarifying kind of questions. Carol asked, when you were first incarcerated, did you go straight to prison and not juvenile hall as a minor, or did you go to
I,
juvenile hall first and then to prison?
I spent 30 days in the juvenile hall, and then it was straight with the big boys.
Wow.
And how old were you then?
At that time, when they moved me straight over there, I was 16 years old.
Hmm. Um,
Yeah.
and also, I think we've touched on this. Um, the crime that you were falsely imprisoned for was murder, right?
Yes.
And I think, because I know David, I think knew that, and we mentioned it, but I think that the weight of being accused of that and then serving time for that, it's hard to imagine, I think, for most people what that would feel like. And I, for myself, I'm looking forward to see what the strength of getting through that does for the rest of your life.
Yeah.
Because it's not something you'd really wish on anybody uh, to
And
go
what
through that process.
how it helped me is that I looked at it like this. I said, people work 25 years at the railroad or at the post office. And then, they retire. And they do all that time within that one setting. And I did 25 years, and they get a pension check after they retire from doing all of that work at that individual job. And I looked at it, I did all of this work in prison, 25 years.
Mhm.
And now it's time for me to retire. And now it's time for them to give me my pension check.
Hmm.
And so when I look at it from that angle, it kind of relaxes me and say, like, look, hey, you're gonna be all right. Your historic track and your DNA, this was your purpose. Your purpose was to crack corrupt officers, and bring down corrupt police departments and find that balance. And that's what you are. And that's the same thing, that Jesus was, and that's the same thing that a lot of historic people are, and a lot of people that's fighting for justice right now. Even you, Gabe, and even you, David, is that's just our mission to balance things out within this system, to keep a check on it. Because if they don't have us to keep a check on it, the power is going to just absorb more power.
Yeah. Well, it's a pretty remarkable story. Ted, I see your hand is up. You're muted though.
Uh,
There you go.
okay. I wanted to ask both Bonnie and Charles the way you did your uh, lessons in the prison when you were going in. What what sort of structure was? Did you do a church service following the manual provision? Did you do Sunday school? Did you do something else? And Charles, how did people respond to those? Not just yourself, but the other guys that you recruited and brought in to those classes. Can you describe what 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 you heard from them afterwards, or what you think they were thinking about those ideas in Christian Science?
Can I start this, Charles, and let
Go
you
ahead,
take
Bonnie.
over from there? Okay. I First of all, I had been teaching the high school students, which helped me be prepared for going into prison. I don't teach a regular Sunday school class where we just read the lesson, which is what I grew up with. I wanted them to understand that the only thing they owned was their thought
Mhm.
and to protect it. And I would talk about that they were in the wilderness being there at the prison when that would be in a story, and that to take that time to really think through who they were and what was happening and to keep their thought clear. And uh, um, so I would take something from the lesson that I thought they would be easy to use in their experience, to just start talking straight metaphysics. They weren't prepared for that, to
Yeah.
understand that. And I think that Father, Mother, God, which Charles talks about, is really important to understand, and the spiritual interpretation. For an example, one of the things I did was uh, in Romans 12, verse 2, to be not conformed to this world, but be transformed by the renewing of your mind. And the word transformed comes from the Greek word for metamorphosis. So I I used to love butterflies, and so I had the monarch caterpillar, and that becomes a chrysalis, and then it becomes the butterfly. And I use that to explain about not being conformed to this world of the caterpillar, but
Mhm.
be transformed by the renewing of your mind to be the butterfly and the freedom that they take forward. And you can't help it come out of that chrysalis. It has to do it its own itself to have the strength to move forward. And I think that they all understood that. But but rather than just going through words and but giving examples really helped them to move forward. And I talked to them a lot about, that word upon word, concept upon concept, and that you build. And I one time I said to them that you need to look at the spiritual meaning behind words. And so the rock was the in the golden text. And I said, well, what's the spiritual idea behind rock? Well, to me, that's a real simple question, but it wasn't simple for them.
Was it simple for them? And so
No.
yeah, and they
Yeah.
and
And
they
so I'll let you take over from there, but
and, and
that's
the
how
and
I
the
conducted
prison
my classes.
Thank
and the
you.
prison the prison population, one thing that they picked up on that she was instilling within the minds of the incarcerated person is that don't let nobody take your thought away. Your thought, you control your thought. I know you in this environment and you may think that the officer is trying to take your thought, but control your thought. That's what you have. And if you key in on that, that's going to relax their mind to where, like, I'm in a negative environment to where I got the gang over here trying to take my thought. I got the officer trying to take my thought. Bonnie and Christian Science say, control your thought. And once they understand that they can control their thought, that's where it's like, look,
Yep.
don't let nobody take the candy out your M&M bowl.
Oh yeah, well, that's a whole other thing, but it's I used to do a workshop and I talked about your bowl of M&Ms. And if you get angry, out go your red M&Ms. And if you run out of money, out go the green M&Ms. And at the end of the day, all you have left is one dark M&M in your bowl and you're empty. And you can spot empty people a mile away because they can't engage. They don't have anything to draw from. And and when I've shared that, people understand that being empty. And the inmates all understood what it meant to be empty and how you have to control your thought so that you can't let other people touch your bowl of M&Ms. I mean, that's not metaphysics, but it's still the point of controlling. You have a choice of controlling your thought and don't let other people trespass on your thought.
But
Yes.
isn't that the essence of metaphysics?
Yes, it is the essence of metaphysics. In fact, I've thought about how to name each of the colors of the M&Ms to different synonyms, but I'm really getting out of line with what Christian Science.
And I believe, in question, in Lansing, I believe, Christian Science, they kind of like abandoned it because I was the one that was like pushing, pushing, pushing. and keeping everything organized and just letting the administration know, like, look, y'all have to acknowledge this one too. Everything is equal. You have to balance this stuff out. So don't just pay so much attention over here and over there. Look, you have to have equal balance. And so if you ain't got no person that's really in the administration face and know how to articulate their words with them, they just going to like forget about it.
Mhm, mhm. I, you know, I I went all through Sunday school, and everybody said, "Well, you just know the truth. You know the truth. You know the truth." Nobody ever said what truth is. And so I left Christian Science for a while, and it came back when I had family and children, and I needed that. I needed to turn back to understand that stability and my relationship with God. And so I never have taught Sunday school like I was taught Sunday school because I wanted to make it interesting and meaningful and how to apply it. And um, and that's what I did. And I also respected every one of the people that were in there with. I called them by their first name. And I don't think in prison you're called by your first name, are you? It's always a number and a last name.
It's the last name.
And so I respected them, and I really worked metaphysically on my arrival to the prison to know that love was right there in those meetings.
We also had a question for you, Charles, and that you may know or that you might know, not know. Eleanor asked if there's still a Christian Science ministry in the prison now that you kind of left.
Oh,
No,
in Lansing?
it's not, because they just don't acknowledge it. And if you don't put pressure on them to acknowledge it and exercise your rights, they're not going to acknowledge it.
Um, um, the reason I'm not at Lansing was because all the prisoners were transferred to El Dorado down by
Yes,
Wichita. And so there was nobody coming to the services at Lansing.
Hmm.
It's a something we've kind of talked with people for years about is just the dynamic between the internal requests for services and how that, and Charles, I think you articulated really well the sometimes like really deliberate efforts that need to be made to just make the case like, hey, we want this person to please come, and that there's just I think an ongoing kind of um, opportunity there to kind
yes,
of keep seeing where the demand for that can meet the supply and the supply can meet the demand
yes.
um and yeah. So Marshall, I see your hand is up.
Yes. Hi, Charles, and hi,
Hey,
Bob.
Marshall, I remember the dog. What's
There you
up?
go. I remember you too.
Yes.
Yeah, it's been a year now since I've been assisting returning citizens, and now we're up to 11. We have 11 as part of our Angel team. It's pretty incredible. Been the
Yes.
best year of my life is this past
Oh,
year.
Hmm. Hmm.
And, I find all of them very bright and really wanting to give back and very enthusiastic and very receptive to not only Christian Science, but wisdom.
Right.
yes.
And you guys are beautiful to work with. And I just admire so much what you've done. And I just encourage you, remember, don't look back because God requires that which is back behind. And
Yes.
and don't worry about the future. Just work on today, and just say, "Not my will, but thine be done," and then move forward. And don't let anything rob you of your joy.
Yes.
So, what are you doing for living situation and job and so forth? How is that working out?
Right now, right now I work for a company called Eco Shield, and I go around, to houses and administer pest control and make sure they don't have any insects, invading their space. And so it's a very lucrative company and it's a very proactive ambition company. They like thriving and growing. And they just utilizing me in some of the areas, where they was just struggling at and just losing clientele. And they just saying, like, look, this young man right here, he have the personality and the presentation to get out there in those neighborhoods that really resonate with his look and with his delivery and with his education. So they put me in those environments, and I dominated the month of December, breaking records. Keep sending him. He make my wife feel so comfortable. We don't want anybody coming out here. Don't send none of them other texts that you had. Just him, like. And so they just really opened up to me, and they resonated with me well. And I show up to their house looking just like this. And so chain out, eco shield shirt on. Oh, where you coming? You look like you about to shoot a video. No, I'm coming to spray your house, make sure you ain't got no bugs invading on your children's space. And so they understand that and they resonate with that. And that's all, that I appreciate from them. Like, look, I'm a humble man, and I'm gonna make sure that society is safe, and I'm gonna make sure that the culture of America is thriving and great again.
I will say something that you are so humble, but he's received promotions. He has people underneath him working now, and things are going so well for him. And he has a house now that he's rented. He's worked all that out. He's making improvements on that, and I
Yes,
just have so much respect about going forward and not looking back.
yes,
Because we
yeah,
have to. If you look back, you can't go forward.
yes, I gotta, I done moved into family mode now. So tomorrow is my first day of family mode. So everything else, like, look, it's buckled down. This is my first professional interview, and now I'm locked in family mode. My breakfast gonna be made. I'm gonna have a partner. We're gonna be working things, and you know, making sure that everything is, done correctly. I'm in a stable environment and trying to keep up on bills, and trying to manage that light bill. I'm like, why is this light bill keep getting up to $300? What is going on? I go in and I unplug everything in the house. Like, nah, look, everything get unplugged. I ain't paying no $300 light bill.
Uh, well, hey, Charles, welcome to the free world. And I look forward to seeing you in September in
Yes, in,
Boulder.
Col- in Colorado,
Yep,
yes, embrace fully. And remember,
absolutely. I'm gonna paste a few links into the chat right now. The first is a preview clip from our Ready for Reentry certification course. It's a YouTube clip. It's with Carlos Vasquez, and it was just the last clip actually we filmed. Um,
yes,
and it was just his like little closing words, and it's just a taste of kind of some of the wisdom that was shared. The second link is to what is basically it's a website. It's the development hub that we've been building for this course. The course is big
mhm,
enough. It's like we have a website for just building the course. It's got links to all 22 lessons. It's got links to our paper edits, to transcripts. So if anybody just wants a light reading of like hundreds of pages of content, you're welcome to check it
yes.
out. And we'd love any feedback you've got. And then thirdly, we've got our link to donate this work, to donate to support this work. And thank you again, Charles, for tuning in tonight. Really, really appreciate
Hey,
everything that you shared. And truly, it's been a pleasure to connect and to see you lit up. Like
Yeah.
we met in Washington, D.C., you hadn't been out real long.
like
Not even a
just
week. Not
man,
even a week.
it was like,
It was
yeah,
4 days.
I was shocked.
And do you mind if I share like the story of what happened outside the reading room?
Yes, you can share.
So, so um, we had just wrapped up this conference, and for those of you who attended, it was really excellent. By the way, we will have the videos for those up available pretty soon. They're actually on YouTube. I just have to make them live in public. Um, and we were hanging out outside of the reading room there in Washington, D.C. It's this beautiful building with this like faceted glass. It's really cool
Yes,
water feature in front. And we had wrapped up. And Charles, I think you were getting ready to, I think, just take an Uber to go back to the
to the
airport
whole,
or
yes,
the hotel, right? To
yes,
go home.
yes,
And uh, you were like, my belt just broke.
yes. I'm trying to fasten my belt because I just got to using the restroom, and I'm like, Gabe,
And it
right
was
in front
like,
of Gabe, my belt broke.
yeah, and it was like the buckle.
Yes, the buckle.
And you you were like, this is one of the, I think it was one of the, I don't know if it was one of the last things that you had, but it
Yes,
still had your prison ID number engraved on it.
yes,
Hmm.
And it was just a really profound moment of like just a true, we don't need this anymore.
yes.
And I
It was
asked
a,
if I could
it was
have
a,
it,
it was a
and I
God,
took
it was
it,
a God moment.
and I put it somewhere where I think, it just sort of was you could say it was spiritually released back into the universe. And so
Yes,
I just wanted to say that was just a really special moment. I had this weird like feeling like
Mhm.
I was like, oh, I'm in Washington, D.C., but and I was just like had this idea like I don't know why, but I feel like I just want a belt, like
yeah.
buy a belt or find a belt or something like that had just been in the back of my mind. And when that happened, I was like, wow, what a moment
What a moment.
and what a special thing. Um, and I'm just really
It's and
glad that you are part of this community, Charles. And I think um,
Mhm.
we're all
it's
glad.
a powerful metaphor. And I just wanted to say, like anybody can contact me at charlesjones4547 at gmail.com. My number is 913-325-0659. And they can contact me at any time. And
The the
it's
913-325. Here, I'll put those in the chat as well.
0659.
Okay. So those are in the chat as well. So if anybody wants to reach out and chat with Charles, you've got his email, you've got his phone number.
Nope, the phone number's wrong. It's 325.
Yes, 325.
That's the
That's
one that I've got in there. Is that not the right
no,
one?
325 is the first three numbers, not the last.
Yes,
Right. 913-325-0659.
that's
Right?
it. Yeah.
Awesome. And yeah, I would just encourage everybody to check out the work we've been doing and reach out to Charles if you would, want to follow up with them about anything. So with
Because
that,
it's some big things on the horizon and things is coming along. And
I will say, if you do reach out to him, maybe just say, "Oh, I saw you there," or I was there. Uh, Text him first, I'm guessing, before you just call, because I don't know if you just answer phone calls, but it's like
I
I know I've got mine set to just send it to voicemail if it's not in my contact, because too many spam calls these days. But
yes.
let's see, David, one last thing before we sign off. Our next Angel Team meeting is for
Next
people to
Thursday.
mark their calendar. It's next Thursday. It's a week from today, actually.
Yeah,
Because
we skipped the first.
yep. So it's 1 week from today. We'd encourage anybody who would like to participate in either learning about becoming a um, learning about what it means to be part of an angel team, start up an angel team. Marshall shared a little bit. He's got a lot of experience now. People are figuring it out. So we would love to have you join. And with that, why don't we sign off for tonight?
Let me just say one last thing to
Yes.
anybody that you might have remembered Charles saying, keep it alive. And just remember how many times he kept going back, how many times he kept knocking. Like Jesus says, knock, 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 knock. It's what you did. And I think that's a great message for all of us. Don't ever give up.
Hmm,
Yes.
absolutely.
Gabriel,
Thank you,
Thank you,
guys.
Charles.
Yeah.
Love you, brother.
Yeah,
Gabriel, could I just say a few things?
sure.
Um, we had a real miracle this past, it's been a little over a week. One of our members that Dave got me in touch with is in Michigan, and he had lost his job just prior to when I learned about him, and he had crashed his car, and he was 2 months behind on his rent, and he didn't have a car. And when I reached him and reached out to him, he was extremely depressed, and I did my best to try to change that. But a week and a half ago, he said, "Don't call me anymore." He said, "I'm going to commit suicide." And Dave and Gabriel were in on that chat. And one of the more valuable things that I've learned is that it's not enough to get these guys going with a job and a place to stay, because their lives are very fragile, and you need to stick with them, I think, for the rest of your life, which is not hard to do because they become brothers. You begin to love them like your own children and so on. And it was so incredible because there's 18 on that a text, a joint text, including our 11 guys. And 7 of the 11 guys jumped on it right away and just started texting back and forth, back and forth, and back and forth. And of course, I work with Kay Cover, who is a chaplain, and she's just absolutely incredible. And we just chatted back and forth all day and really, really praying, digging in and praying. And by evening, that he was all turned around.
Good.
And it was the most beautiful thing to see all of those guys come to the fore with really super good advice. And Lavelle learned that he had a lot of support. He had a lot of love, a lot of people that really cared about him, which I don't think a lot of returning citizens have experienced before. And so now he's on his way again. He's interviewing, he's excited, he's focusing on each day, and he's excited and motivated. And it was really just the most beautiful thing I've ever seen. And I just congratulate the other returning citizens that really, really showed that they cared and loved him. And not too many people have that kind of support, quite frankly, but he did. So it was a real victory. I hope to report by the end of the month that he's got a job, he's interviewing, and I'm sure he will have. And we keep reinforcing that God gave us a plan before we were born, and that plan is only includes good. And we just have to get into that plan through listening to the angel thoughts that come to us, is how God communicates to us. And they really all imbibe that spirit, and they're all working on God's plan. So aren't we grateful? Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thanks, Marshall.
Thanks for sharing that, Marshall. It was a pretty remarkable sequence of events that happened then, and I'm sure we'll touch on that again in a week from now. But thanks again, everybody. Thanks for coming tonight.
Thank you.
We'll see
Thank
you
you,
as
Bonnie.
well for our
Thank you,
next
Charles.
interview in
Thank
about a
Thanks,
month.
you,
David, for helping us
David.
get through this.
All
All
right,
right.
David.
You
Bye.
sent